What's going on, guys? My name is Wyatt Reed, and this is the Ascend Your Success podcast. And today I got my partner, Jacob Ninan. We're in Georgia doing this, and we're excited because we're fixing to start this series called How to Get Started in Real Estate. And we were challenged recently by one of our mentors who said, hey, if people can't do a deal based on your free content, then there's something wrong with your coaching program. And we took a step back and looked at our stuff. And while we do believe that you probably could if you go back and look at all of our stuff and take notes and take action, we want to make it even easier to be able to do that. So we put together a series, and today we're going to be talking about vision and budget. But before we get into that, we just want to introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Jacob, you want to get started first?
Yeah, so my name's Jacob Ninan. I'm an investor here in the Atlanta metro area. Our company has a pretty big focus on wholesaling, fix and flip, and, a few other exit strategies there, but two of the more predominant ones being flipping and wholesaling. But yeah, started from the corporate world, left the corporate body shop world, and went into real estate investing full-time almost 2 years ago. My partner and I built a team and, kind of run a smaller team, not looking to conquer the world, so to speak, but we run a pretty good team enough to where Wyatt and I are able to sit here today while the business is still running and share content and do things with you guys. So, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of us.
Love it, love it. I like how we both came from an automotive background. Yours was a little bit more corporate. I was on the plant floor. I started out as just a person that was working a screwdriver on an assembly line and ended up making my way into maintenance and then engineering. And then I was like, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I got started in real estate about five or 6 years ago. I started out just wanting to do everything and then really dialed it into more of a buy and hold situation. So we have multiple portfolios. We still do flips and wholesales and novations and stuff like that. My main focus, and what I tell everybody their main focus should be, is cash flow, because you get to a certain point and like you have that freedom to be able to say, hey, I'm going to go, I don't have to work this week, or I don't have to do this, or I'm going to take off and go this week.
Absolutely.
And so, like, I think that should be the foundation of everything, I believe. And so it just gives you that freedom. But yeah, we've built up multiple portfolios. We buy and hold single families mostly, but we also do storage facilities, and then we coach as well. So we coach beginners on how to get started, which is what this is going to be, but we also have a mastermind where we teach people who are already successful how to essentially put systems and processes in place and pull themselves out of the business to be able to work on the business and not in the business, right?
So that's kind of where my background comes from, coming from the corporate world, running production, high production teams, things like that, having to delegate responsibilities and grow teams. Thankfully I was able to transition from that knowledge and understanding to real estate. Obviously still had to learn the real estate, the strategies, the intricacies of real estate, but have been able to implement that really well within our business to, build a team that, more so does the heavy lifting, but everybody's filling the role that they need to fill. So on the mastermind side of things, yeah, if you're looking to go from a solopreneur or actually turn it into a legitimate business where you do have some freedom, because I believe that portfolios, buying rentals, seller finance, all that kind of stuff is great, and it is in the grand scheme of things passive, but I also believe in creating passive businesses as well. That does active things, but you can passively run it. So if that's something you guys are interested, of course, you can definitely check out the Ascend Mastermind. We'd go a little bit more into that with that group. So
yeah, so I love the way we do things and the way we handle things, because we're looking at things from a totally different point of view, right? You've got this awesome transactional business that's doing all these deals, and like ever since I've known you, like I knew you guys back when you were still in the jobs and the W-2s, and like where you guys have come, where we both come from, y'all built this thing that you don't really have to be a part of on the day-to-day, which on the other hand, like for me, I've built the portfolio. So it's really like the same outcome, right? As long as you do it properly. And I think that's why a lot of our students get really good feedback, because we come from completely different mindsets on the real estate strategy side.
Absolutely.
So cool. Well, let's get into this, man. This How to Get Started in Real Estate series. We wanted to break it down to pretty much like what we would do if we were onboarding a new student. We don't like the whole fluff, do this for 3 months, not even look at a house kind of thing. Like, we want leads coming in from day one, but we got to have an understanding of what we need to be focused on and what we need to be doing. We need to understand why we're doing these things, and we need to understand, like, do we even have the money to do, do we have a budget? Do you even know your finances? Like, most people don't keep up with their finances. And so, like, the first thing I tell people is to send me what you think that you want out of real estate, and then also send me what your income and what your expenses are broken down, so that we can know, are you living paycheck to paycheck, which is fine. I done it living paycheck to paycheck. I got started that way. But we need to understand where you are, because if you have a couple extra $100 or a couple extra $1,000, that could actually, like, slingshot you further.
Yeah. So, not to be cliche, but I'm a firm believer that if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. So if you're around Wyatt or myself for any extended period of time, you'll hear us talk about vision casting, and essentially planning. That's one of the things we like to do as soon as we are talking to anyone, and that's wanting to come into the program or just talk about it in general, is like, well, what is your vision for this? I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I have my own opinion on the types of visions that I see are more successful. That's typically those ones where the vision is bigger than the person themselves. Some people are purely in this just to make more money, and that's fine too. But either way, you have to have a reason and a vision for this. I know back whenever I was getting started, my reasoning was, hey, I'm trading time for money. I'm working 60 to 70 hours a week. My kids are growing up without me being around a whole lot. We were living a really comfortable lifestyle and had nice things. But I realized as I was getting older, like, I'm trading my time for money, and I wanted some form of freedom. I think that's probably the most common thing we probably hear is, I want time freedom. I don't know that everybody quite understands what they're saying when they say that, but I had a pretty general idea, like, hey, I don't want to be chained to a desk. I even at some point just felt like if I was just chained to a desk that was my own business, maybe I would be happy. But even after going into it and doing it myself, I quickly realized I still didn't want that either. So, not to get long-winded about that, but the vision. You got to have a vision. You got to know why you're doing this. There's got to be a why, a greater why, outside of just, in my opinion, than just making money. But we like to talk about that with people, because once we know what your vision is, a lot of times, based on your vision, I can determine how serious are you actually about doing this. Because the reality is, all of this stuff works, whether you're listening to us or the 50 million other people that are doing what we do and tell you how to do real estate. All of it works, but it only works as well as you work. So if you don't actually set the plan and hold to it, you can't really expect a whole lot out of it.
Yeah, and the vision changes over time, I think. I think a lot of people start off and say that they're doing this for their family, but you quickly see once people start making money if that's really the truth or not, right? And there's sacrifice to this. Like, in business, there's sacrifice. If you want to grow, I was listening to something the other day, and it was like, hey, that whole work-life balance when you're first getting started and starting any business, it's not a thing. We have to sacrifice, and we still do at some points in times. But after 3, 4, 5 years, we've really dialed it into where now we're more on the family side and less on the business side. But it takes a lot of sacrifice in the beginning. And so, like, if you just say, hey, I want to do this for my family, and then you start making money and then destroy your family, like, we've seen it so many times, right? And so that's why it's so important to have a clear vision, and that's why it's so important to have good people around you. Like, we don't even really do, like me and Jacob ourselves, we don't really do business with people who aren't kingdom-minded anymore, We just seen too much of that stuff in the past, and we want to work with people who's got our same values and morals and principles. So, like, the first milestone, I would say, that should be everybody's first milestone is to replace your income, right? Whether that's doing, 3 wholesale deals a year or buying 3 to 5 rentals and replacing your income depending on what that income looks like. That needs to be the first one, because like if you can double your income from your W-2, like, I mean, obviously that's going to be awesome for your finances, but it gives you that freedom to be able to take a step back and say, do I really need to work at this job anymore? Like at that point, do you have that what's the word I'm looking for, that belief in yourself that I can do this, so now I need to take this and run with it.
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the years that, did a wholesale deal and made 10, 20 plus $1,000 profit on it and quit their job. Now, that's amazing, and I applaud their courage and faith in being able to do more. Just being completely transparent, when I left my W-2, I was making really good money. So 20 or 30 grand is a lot of money to me still, but that wasn't enough for me to feel comfortable leaving my job straight away. But, if you're in a position where, we have a student that used to like work at Waffle House or something like that, and he made, I don't know, a little bit more about that. He made a nice fat profit on a flip, and it was like his year's salary. So yeah, in that case, absolutely. Like now it's like, well, if I take my time away from the job and go commit to this 100%, could I not at least double this? So yeah, those are things just to take into account. But again, just going back to the planning, the vision, and then the plan would be, I would say, budgeting. I don't know, that's probably the first thing we have a conversation with people about outside of the vision, outside of the why. Is okay, like how are you planning on doing this? What do you have to work with? Do you have anything to work with? And I think that's probably the most common question I get is, how do I get started? And it's kind of a loaded question.
Right.
But essentially what they're saying is, what do I have to do in terms of the bells and whistles? Am I paying for this? Like, how do I find houses? All that kind of stuff. But before we get into any of that, we want to talk budget. Like, what do you have the capacity to do? Were you like me when you were in your W-2 making pretty good money and did have the ability to create a budget that helped you go ahead and start some kind of marketing? Or are you the kind of person that is working a lower income job and every bit of the money you make has to go to your bills and your family, which is completely fine. I actually hear that case more than any other, honestly. And to be completely transparent, some of the more successful people I've ever dealt with were the ones that were in those situations, not the ones that had the comfort of a really good paying job. Quite honestly, it's kind of it's like a blessing and a curse. It's like it's a blessing to make the money and all that, but it's almost like it makes those people lazy and less likely to take action. But getting back to the budget, like we really want to build on that. What do you have the ability to do, or do you have it? Because from there, it really gives us a guideline. Which part do we need to really hammer down on?
And I think one more piece of advice that I can give is to, once you set this vision, this budget, you need to make sure that you stay focused on that, because, as you know, and I went through it hard, is that you have this thing called "oh shiny" syndrome when you step into this. You get around people who are doing bigger and better things than you, and you haven't even done a deal yet, and you're like, oh, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I was the same way. Like, I wanted to start a podcast and do the deals, and then have a portfolio and do this, and I hadn't even done a single deal yet. And so you need to be laser focused on what's right in front of you. Yes, you need to have a vision that's long term, but once you set that, you need to be focused on step 1. Like, don't worry about step 7, worry about step 1, and then get there.
Yeah, comparison is a really bad thing. If I could and we've all been through it, and to this day, probably still have that issue from time to time, but it's your journey. It's your, your path. You're always going to find people doing less than you and more than you. And quite honestly, I look for people these days that are doing more than me, because now I have someone to learn from, someone to gain some information from, or, figure out, hey, you got here. How? Like, give me some clues here, some nuggets, as we like to say in the real estate world. But yeah, just don't fall into the comparison. That's why every time we work with someone new, it's a strategy session one-on-one. We're not talking about what everybody else is doing. But we're honestly very particular about, even in the community, allowing other people to talk about certain things, especially in the beginners community, because you just got to keep your eyes on the prize, stay focused on what you're doing, and then, build step by step. Like Wyatt said, you don't want to go from step 1 to 7. You got to follow it in order.
So for me, I have an Excel sheet, and I just have all of these expenses in my personal life, like my house, my insurance, my cars, my student loans, my this, that, and the other. And I have all of that written out in one column, and then I have when that comes out of my account on the next column, and then how much that is on the next column, right? So I know every single month what's coming out of my account, and I even have it like to where I can say, okay, I need this much this week, this much this week, and this much this week. So I can actually pay myself weekly based on what I need for that week, right? And then you can sit down and you can say, okay, well, I have, $4,500 coming in, and I got $3,000 going out. So now I have $1,500. Like, where is that going? Is that going to fast food? Is that going to eating out and going to the movies and stuff like that? If so, maybe 500 of that can be set back and put into a postcard campaign or a text campaign or something like that, which we'll talk about on the next episode of the series, which is free and paid leads. So, what about you?
You saying that prompted me to think of something, and I just want to throw this out there before we go a little bit further, is when you have a job that you go to Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, whatever your schedule is. I know that when I had a job, because I worked so much, when I had some free time, I felt like I needed to go spend money. So
you deserve it.
Yeah, it's almost like a reward. I mean, honestly, you do. Like you worked all week, you worked really hard, you deserve to go out and do whatever it is you want to do. But I will say this is going to be a mindset shift for you guys as you progress through your journey. You'll realize that when you become an entrepreneur and you actually start, full time in your business, you don't really need to do that because you have so much time freedom now that you don't feel like you've worked yourself to death necessarily at some point, and you actually get to the point where you're spending less money. So it's like, yeah, over the years I've made more money, but like right now I can honestly say like our family goes out to eat less and less and less, which is A, healthier and better for us in general. B, we're spending more time at home with the family. But C, it's saving us money because we're not spending as much money going out. Meanwhile, we're making more while saving more. And I just thought of that when you said that. It's because I don't feel like I need to, because I don't wake up every day and go do something that I necessarily didn't want to do, or I don't wake up every single day and go do something that someone else told me I had to do. But as far as the budgeting thing, yeah, very similar thing like Wyatt's speaking to, essentially however you want to track it, whether you're using some spiffy app on your phone, which there's a million of them on, the app market, or you're using an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets or whatever kind of person you are. It's kind of, in this day and age, it's almost impossible not to be able to do it, even at the easiest level. So, yeah, you clearly want to spend less than what you have coming in. That's as simple as it gets. But where it becomes eye-opening is when you sit down and you go through this with people, they'll quickly realize, I can't believe I'm spending this much on this particular thing. Like they didn't even realize it because they don't. Then, which that tells me they're not looking at their expenses. And as soon as they take a quick look at that and realize, wait, I spent how much on coffee last week or Ghost energy drinks? Shameless plug. We need an affiliate for that. Hit me up. But anyway, it's, those types of things. And once it's present in mind and you know it, now you can be aware of it. And what I find is most of the time when I talk this type of stuff with people, they think they had less than they did. But once we analyzed it and looked at some things, just minor changes, they suddenly do have some freed up capital or some money to potentially do investing or, investing in marketing or whatever, or at the very least, just some breathing room in life in general, whether they go do a real estate deal or not. Even after leaving that budget system, they have some kind of idea. Well, if I don't do a deal in my life, at least I just found some holes where I can actually live a little bit more comfortably.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it goes back to those sacrifices that we were talking earlier. When I first got started in real estate, I was hanging out with people that that I don't hang out with anymore, right? And we were drinking.
We're talking about circle of influence.
Yes.
That's a whole nother
Yeah,
episode
that's
in
another
itself.
episode.
That could be an hour-long episode right there.
Yeah, so and those people and those things that we used to do, once we got into business, we realized that was hurting our business, and that if we wanted to create a better life for ourselves, then we were, we don't drink anymore. We don't do the things that we used to do anymore. It kind of, and not to get on another rant, but it kind of goes back to that, like what we teach in discipleship. When you identify yourself with Christ, when you do that, it says, 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, if you're in Christ, you're a new creation. The old is past and the new is here. Same thing in business, right?
Yep.
You can't continue to do the same things that you used to do
And expect
What's the
definition
results.
of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. So we were a little bit over the time that we wanted for this, but that's fine because I think this has been good conversation. But let's set some homework for these series episodes. That way people can actually go out and take action. So number one, I'd say we need to sit down and actually know where we're at in our budget. So we need to sit down and we need to write, okay, what's our household income? And then on the other hand, we need to know what are our expenses every single month, our hard expenses. And you can even go as far as to saying, go back 3 months and say, how much have I been spending on eating out? How much have I been spending on miscellaneous stuff? And write that down and see, that's a game changer too, because I'm the opposite of Jacob. I spend way too much money on eating out, right? So that's where I could cut back. But we sacrificed that for a long time up front, right?
Don't get me wrong. We did it a long time and did it a lot. I promise you. When I looked at that number and saw what we were spending on eating out, it was staggering. But yeah, coming from my corporate background, we talk trends. What we always looked at as a trend was what we call 90 days. So 3 months to me for anything is usually a good trailing number to be able to look. And, when I say look at your budget, I'm saying look at the last 90 days. Whatever you did in the last 90 days is what you're doing every day. Let's just be honest. Now, as far as forecasting and foreshadowing your budget, I'm always a big believer of it, a minimum of 6 months in terms of setting up a budget long term. But I would say using your 90 days as a guideline to now forecast and set a budget moving forward is totally sufficient. So yeah, don't sit here and act like, the mortgage company or the bank called you and wants a year worth of statements. Like I don't think that's necessarily sufficient unless you had some major life-changing event, marriage or, had a baby or bought a house or something like that in the last 90 days, then maybe go a little bit outside of that. But otherwise, I feel like that 90-day trailing number is probably sufficient for that.
Yeah, and so once you get your budget and your vision, like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to after you get your budget, ask yourself why. Why do you want to start this business? And if your answer is, I want to make money, or your answer is, I want to do it for my family, I encourage you to go even deeper into that. So Steve Cook has a great book. It's called Life in Air. And so it's about that balance of life and business and this, that, and the other. And like I said, you will have to make sacrifices. This isn't something that you just can implement from day one, right? But he's got some good vision documents, and we have those. We have those documents in our school community. And so if you reach out to me, I might just send them to you. But he goes down into, like, why do you want to do this spiritually? Why do you want to do this physically? Why do you want to do this mentally, emotionally? Like, he asks all these questions, like, do you want to give? Do you want to, how much do you want to give? What do you want to do? And so we actually take those vision documents every year and we create a vision board, and we say, this is how much we want to give. This is to who we want to give. Future giving, like, we want to give away a house one day. We want to give away a car one day. What are your physical things that you want? Like, I had a truck on there, and I actually just got my truck, right? I have a nice watch on there that I may or may not get eventually, the physical things, the charity, what are your hobbies? What do you want to do? Like, if you could wave a magic wand and be able to live the life that you want to live, like, what are some of those hobbies? And we've been talking about golfing here lately. Like, I used to golf a lot, and I got rid of my clubs, and now I'm fixing to go back and start getting some clubs and going back golfing.
That might have been a bad influence on that.
that comes with that sacrifice thing, right? Just write all of that down. If you had the perfect life and you were living your perfect life, what would that life look like? How much would you be giving? What would you be doing? How would you be spending it with your family? How many vacations would you be going on? What would you be doing? And then you can kind of say, okay, well, this is the reason why I want to do this, but let's take it one step at a time. Here's how much I got to replace my income with, and then all of that comes after. Like, the first step is replacing your income. So we need to know what that is. Then we need to know what your budget is so that we can say, okay, well, you got to start with your free leads, or you got to start with your paid leads, or you got to start with both, which we're fixing to talk about in this next episode.
So one thing I'll add before we end this one out, to go back to a why, the two biggest reasons, like you just said earlier, like, I want to make more money, I want to spend more time with my family. And the reason why we don't let that be your final answer to us is because money's just a tool if you understand it correctly. But when all you say is, I want to make more money, that means as soon as you make it, you're going to spend it, probably recklessly or, irresponsibly. So when you have a plan on, if you say, well, I want to make more money, my next question is why. It's like when you're a little kid and you tell your kid something, and they just keep saying why. So we're going to keep doing that until we get to the root of it. And the same thing goes with a family. I want to spend more time with my family. Why? And the reason why that's so important is because I personally was like, I want to spend more time with my family. And then when I had more time, guess what? I didn't spend it with my family because I didn't know why I wanted to or how I should. Mm-hmm. Same thing with money. I just want to make more money. Well, guess what? When you had more money, what'd you do? You spent it because you thought, oh, I just need to spend it. Yeah. Well, no, because you didn't have a plan for it. So just to give you guys some insight, that's why we ask you these questions and why we don't want, as we refer to, surface level answers. We want deeper answers, because not to appease us, not to make us feel happy or whatever, but so that you can come to the realization of, your deeper why. Why are you doing this? And once you understand that, now you can really commit and really build a plan and go after it, because now you have something with purpose and meaning instead of just these generalized surface level responses.
Yep. So vision, budget, we need to get those straight before you get started. Before you go to the next episode, write down what your vision and your budget is. Spend time on that. Don't just write it down really quick. Get your wife involved, get your kids involved. Write your vision and your budget, and let's take it serious, because we're fixing to move on to the next episode, lead generation. So, hey, guys, if you heard something you liked, hopefully this brought you a ton of value. But if you're like, man, I want to talk to these guys and I want to go through all this with them, we don't have virtual assistants. We don't have people who answer the phone calls for us. It's just us. So if you go to ascendyoursuccess.com, fill out a couple of questions, we'll give you a call personally and we'll walk you through some of this stuff and see where you're at and see if we can be of help to you, see if you fit our community, see if we fit you. But either way, we'll see you guys on the next one.
Take care, guys.